Hi everyone, and I hope all you have an enjoyable day. With regards to human resources management, we have gathered to discuss the following issues with employee selection. Let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Erica J. Cruz, and here with me are the other members of our group, Moonfred Gretchen Nimatong, Lynette Pascual, and Jamaica Charmaine Sebastian. Let us define first what is employee selection. The process of interviewing and analyzing candidates for a certain position and choosing the right person to work based on specific criteria, including credentials, skills, and experience. The objective of the selection process is to match the applicant's ability, knowledge, skills, and experience with the job requirements in a fair and legal manner by Karim et al. 2021. There are various issues that were taken into consideration during the employee selection. Those are resume screening, developing interview questions, weighing the candidates, and test administration and making offer. To further elaborate on this point, let us hear from Lynette Pascual.
For part 1 of the presentation, I will be discussing reasons why employee selection is a problem in human resource management. There are a number of obstacles that the HR department must overcome in order to find and hire the ideal candidate. First, the difficulty in finding qualified characters for specific roles or difficulty in sourcing unique roles. One example of this is in the techno-commercial fields, where there is a severe shortage of candidates for senior positions and unusual jobs. Positions of this importance require specialized knowledge that is difficult to find. Secondly, a proper analysis of the job. Finding the position and title for the candidate is the first order of business when we go out for sourcing. One type of form based on job analysis would be one that details the duties and responsibilities of a position, along with the standards of performance that must be met. Incorrect analysis of this sort could lead the hiring process in the wrong direction, with disastrous consequences for the company. Number 3, pay. Financial stability is necessary but not sufficient to inspire action. So salary is an important factor for the job seeker. The best people in any field will always seek the highest possible salary. The candidate's salary is difficult to determine. Number 4, applicant or the candidate. Individuals' talents are their most valuable assets, but it is challenging to find and recruit top performers. For example, if you are recruiting a short-order cook, you might want to insist on previous cook experience, and only candidates who have this experience are invited for an interview. Fifth, disparities or biases in interviews. Many people on an interview panel may be biased against women or people of a certain race or ethnicity, which can discourage qualified applicants from accepting the position. An example is employer-enforced grooming policies that explicitly forbid dreadlocks, violate employees' constitutionally protected right to free expression of race, and promote harmful racial stereotypes. Number 6, organizational congruence or organizational fit. Employment institutions primarily seek candidates who are a good cultural fit for the company. It's not hard for HR to find candidates who are a good fit for a specific job, but it is challenging to make them a good fit for the organization as a whole and to educate them on the company's culture. Last but not the least, employee retention. It is difficult to keep employees on board for a long time, as they will eventually leave for a better paying position elsewhere. People like that will quit as soon as they can get the chance. These are some of the biggest obstacles that HR has to overcome during the hiring process. Human resources professionals can and will find themselves up against good practices designed to help them triumph over these obstacles. For the part 2 of the presentation, it will be discussed by Erica.
Thank you, Lynette. There is some preparation involved in selecting the right candidate for the position they are applying for. Just for example, in the emergency room as a manager, we need to review the resume of each candidate. In reviewing resume, You should be able to determine at a glance whether a candidate meets your primary criteria, experience, in addition to qualifications of the person you are interviewing. According to Shareable Team of the 2021, evaluate the resume of the most important qualifications. Just for example, in applying as emergency room nurse, the candidate must have a current license from the College Nurses of Ontario to participate his or her profession as a valid basic life support certification, which are some of the requirements for applying for the position. Take close attention to the layout, spelling, and punctuation, as well as their remarkable attention to details. There are possibilities that an applicant's resume concealed red flags regarding their eligibility for the position. However, it is essential to understand what those warning indicators look like, such as unexplained employment gaps, as well as evidence for decreased responsibilities, are some of the examples. For the next one is developing interview questions. At this point, at an employment interview, each question that you ask should be customized to a certain objective. This objective may be elicit particular facts, gain some understanding of the candidate's prior experience, or analyze the candidate's conceptual framework when presented with a range of different scenarios. While formulating interview questions, it is critical to a manager to have a solid understanding of the candidate's prior job experiences and the nature of those experiences. In addition to this, it is essential to provide sample of different scenarios that the candidate might respond to. As a manager, you will give scenarios to which you will allow the candidate to reply, such as situation in emergency departments, where the typical question is, which patient do you need to prioritize? In this case, you will let the candidate determine which patient is the most critical. As a manager, asking for the appropriate question can help the better evaluate your candidate and match the best hiring decision. Let me allow Moonfrey to discuss as we go on to the next stage of interview process.
Once the interview process is complete, we can now proceed in weighing our candidates. Every interviewer should have a selection model. This method uses a statistical approach rather than a clinical approach. A clinical selection approach involves everyone in the hiring decision. The decision makers examine the data and decide who should be hired based on what they learned from the candidate and the information they already have. One thing to think about is unequal treatment, which is someone's biases cause them to not hire people based on their age, race, or gender. Using a statistical method in hiring is one way to deal with this and minimize the interviewer's own stereotypes and perceptions. A statistical method is subdivided in three statistical techniques. First is the compensatory model. This model allows a high score in one area to compensate for a lower score in another. The second is multiple cutoff model. In a multiple cutoff model, a candidate must have a minimum score level on all selection criteria. Therefore, the nurse candidate must meet all criteria at the very least. And lastly, the multiple hurdle model. In here, only candidates with high scores advance to the next stages of the selection process. Besides the weighing of candidates, there are various other factors that may predict job performance. Following a successful interview, a number of exams may be administered. The major categories of tests include: first is the cognitive ability test. This measures a nurse's capacity for problem solving and judgment in an emergency setting, for example. This enables the company to evaluate the candidate's decision-making and rapid thinking skills. Next is the personality test. It is used to gauge a nurse candidate's attitudes, values, and beliefs. It enables the employer to evaluate the candidate's interpersonal skills, stress management, and ability to remain composed under duress. Third is physical test. These examinations assess a person's physical capabilities and give the employer information about the person's capacity for carrying out physical responsibilities. These examinations can gauge a person's stamina, speed, agility, flexibility, and endurance. Activities like pushing, tugging, and lifting the patient may also be part of the task. Another crucial technique for hiring emergency room workers is job knowledge testing. The job knowledge test consists of a range of inquiries that gauge the candidate's familiarity with medical practices, terminology, and tools. These questions may also reflect the respondent's knowledge of legal and ethical principles in medicine. And lastly, the work sample test. These are lists of recommendation letters, awards, and achievements that the candidate shares with the interviewer. These work samples can often be a good indicator of someone's abilities in a specific area like using of medical equipment. As always, before looking at samples, the interviewer should have specific criteria or expectations developed so each candidate can be measured fairly. Once the discussion on whom to hire has occurred and a person has been selected, the final phase of the process is to make an offer to the candidate. The professional's job does not end with the selection. The following stage is to make the offer. This phase is critical because if it's not completed correctly, you may lose the candidate or have unpleasant sentiments at the start of the work relationship. It is possible for hiring managers to prepare for a job offer in advance in order to improve the chance that a candidate would accept the offer and quickly become absorbed into a company. Once you have made decision to hire someone, make the offer to the candidate right away. Normally, this is done through a phone call and a follow-up email outlining the details of the offer. It's also essential to guarantee that the offer is competitive and accurately reflects the candidate's qualifications and expertise. This helps to ensure that the candidate is motivated to accept the post and that they are happy with their decisions. Negotiating a wage or benefits package is not uncommon. Understand how far you can go in negotiating, as well as how your present employees will be affected if you offer this person a larger compensation. If you are having difficulty reaching an agreement, be imaginative in what you may offer, such as flex time instead of more salary. Let us now hear a brief overview of the discussion from Ms. Jamaica Charmaine Sebastian.
On selection process, we should always remember the goal, which is to find and hire the best candidate for job openings. Finding qualified candidates is a vital aspect of every HR department's duties. Human resources must be cautious in completing open positions by only hiring individuals who meet all of the requirements for the job. Selection usually consists of series of steps. The following are general framework for selection commonly used. First is application review. Review all resumes and applications received based on pre-established hiring criteria like experience and education. Second is prelim screening, often often done over the phone or via Skype. In pre-screen, the candidates are given necessary information about the nature of the job and the organization. Third is the interview. It has three purposes. First is obtaining information about the applicant. Second is giving information about the specific job to the applicant. Third is the establishing early relationship between the potential employee and employer. Fourth is the background check. Some jobs require certain checks and tests to be conducted on employees before they are hired. And the last one is reference check. Advisable to speak 2 to 3 references for each candidate with at least one being former supervisor. There are factors affecting the steps in a selection process for recruitment. One is type of role being recruited for. Is this new role or is there an incumbent? Is it a manager or a subordinate? Second is the location of the role. Is this in a local office or remote location? Third is number of decision makers involved. Is there one ultimate decision maker or multiple? How difficult it will be to coordinate them if there are multiple? Fourth is number of applicants available for selection. Is there a candidate shortage in your market? If there is an oversupply of candidates, how long will it take you to filter through them all? Fifth is organization selection requirements. Different companies have their own selection policies. For a successful selection process, it is recommended to have clear hiring criteria established and agreed upon by all key decision makers. Next is the final approval. Final approval in an organization, much of the recruitment process is left to the HR department. However, final approval is usually the responsibility of an executive of the recruitment unit or department. After an approval, there are offer negotiation, induction, and onboarding stages. While it can be a lengthy process, a formalized selection process is a critical component of successful hiring. So that's it for our presentation. Thank you for listening.